My name is Jay Hansen. I work in the business development area of GrandPad. GrandPad as a company has been around for 7 years. We started the business 7 years ago. It was actually a father and son team, Scott and Isaac Lean. Scott's originally from a small town in northeastern Iowa. I've been involved in GrandPad since the early days. My mom was production user number 8. The best way to illustrate why we built GrandPad initially is really to tell you a story about my mom. And so, as I mentioned, I grew up in this small town in Iowa. My dad had passed away, and I live in Minneapolis. It's about a 3-hour car ride between Minneapolis and where I grew up. And my mom was getting to the age where making that car ride was difficult. I had, at the time, 3 small children. And I really wanted to share all of the things that they were involved with. So I figured the right solution is that I would get my mom a laptop, get her set up on set up with a Wi-Fi, got her a Gmail account, a Facebook account, a Skype ID. And I spent an afternoon and showed her how to use all of it. I walked away excited. She walked away excited. And that's when problems really started to happen. She accidentally deleted her Gmail icon that I had put on, and we were never able to complete a Skype video call. That was just too complex for her to deal with. Then she got a call from one of these companies who claim you have a virus on your computer. So she took the call, she gave them her credit card, they came in and they trashed her system. And at that point, she swore off all technology. She just decided that it wasn't for her. And about 6 months later, we were ready for our first production users of GrandPad. So I called my mom up. It was a Thursday afternoon. I told her I had a present for her. So I drove the 3 hours down. I walked in the door and I said, "Mom, here's your present." The very first words out of her mouth were, "I can't use that. I'm a technology dummy." And I said, "Well, just a minute. Let's give something a try." So I brought up solitaire. So she started playing solitaire and said, "Hey, this is pretty easy. I think maybe I can use this." And I said, "Mom, just a minute. I need to go make a business call." And so with the companion app that we have, I walked outside and I made my business call, which was to my mom. There's a big green answer button in my profile picture. She had no idea what she was doing, but she made her first video call at the age of 75. But that's the reason we built GrandPad to begin with, to have a safe, simple, and secure platform that a 90-year-old would be able to use right out of the box. So one of the important things to notice or note about GrandPad is the safe part of that. We have what's called a circle of trust. So just like I made that video call from the Apple or the iOS app to my mom's GrandPad, I registered my email address and phone number with the GrandPad website. That includes me in that circle of trust. And we block everything else. So spam emails, spam phone calls, unless you've registered your email address and phone number, we don't let anything else through. So that was 7 years ago. Fast forward, we always realized that healthcare and other organizations that are related to healthcare could utilize GrandPad. Our first entree into that was with an organization called Home Instead. They are a in-home companion care organization, private pay, where they utilize GrandPad as part of their daily service. So they provide a GrandPad to their customer. Their care teams, that oversee what's going on, utilize GrandPad as to make virtual visits versus driving out to the patient's home. we also then started getting more and more attention from big healthcare organizations, Kaiser, United Health Group, Humana, those types. And they were all very interested in GrandPad as a technology platform. And really, our main pitch to them was that those telehealth solutions that you have built for your 30, 40, and 50-year-old patients are great. It's the wave of the future, but that same solution isn't going to work for an 80 or 90-year-old. It's just far too complex to expect them to have a smart device, go to an app store or the Google Play Store, download that app, figure out their whole user ID password scenario. And so then fast forward just a little bit further, and when COVID hit and everything was locked down, suddenly all of the healthcare organizations that we were making that pitch to said, you're right, we can't communicate with our seniors in their home. And oh, by the way, we can't bring them into our office either. So we need that to do something. And at that point, the many of the healthcare organizations started to deploy GrandPad in a large way. We have a primary care group out of Texas that has deployed a fleet of GrandPads, and they've made over, I think, 500,000 video calls since May of last year. We also have the Program for the All-Inclusive Care of the Elderly, PACE, and I know there are several PACE organizations in the Bay Area. So GrandPad was named the preferred telehealth platform for PACE. Of the 140 PACE organizations, we currently have about 40 that are in some state of deploying GrandPad, either in the early part of that, or we have some that are rolling it out to every single one of their participants. And really, it's about changing the way that they interact with their participants. We're using a 10-cent word. Digital transformation has been around forever, but in this case, I think it really fits. So many of the PACE organizations are incorporating GrandPad and changing the way that they interact with their participants. They don't need to bring them into the center anymore. They can still deliver that high quality care through virtual visits using the GrandPad platform. We've also worked with a few AAA organizations. They use it primarily for care coordination activities. And then we also have the Bayview Adult Day Center, who's been utilizing GrandPad very effectively since COVID hit last March. And we have another adult day center on the East Coast that is also utilizing GrandPad. So all of those use cases have kind of a common theme to it. There's a need to digitally communicate with a senior in their home. And home could be a facility of some kind, but predominantly they're living on their own, and they need a easy to use platform with which to easily communicate with the care team that is providing service to them. So that's a brief summary overview of GrandPad and how what's happened to us with the whole COVID situation. So this is the main interface. You'll notice big buttons, very, very large text, and it does support scrolling back and forth. However, that's a very foreign concept to many seniors. So we always have the navigation buttons down below that allow them to move back and forth within the environment. And so I'm going to start with the consumer side. So the big green call button is a highly used application. And I mentioned to you that circle of trust. So this is a mirror image of my mom's GrandPad. And so all of these people are related to me in some way. And I'm going to be showing you pictures of all of my family as well. But all of these people have recorded their put their cell phone number and email address on our website. That includes them in the circle of trust. So for my mom to make a call to me, she doesn't need to know my Skype ID or my telephone number. She merely clicks on my profile picture, and then she's able to make a video call or a phone call, both of which will ring to my cell phone on my companion app. The phone call actually is an actual cell call, so that would just ring my cell number. Email works in a very similar manner. So we hold a lot of game tournaments. So this is a bingo tournament. And so to read it, they merely click on that button. Very easy for them to navigate. They have the easy ways to deal with the particular email. And for my mom to send an email to me, which is the way that my mom and I communicated all the time. I'd be headed out on a business trip. I'd send her an email from my Gmail account telling her I'm going to California. And by the time I landed, I would have at least one, sometimes two emails from her. And again, she doesn't need to know my Gmail account. She merely clicks on my profile picture and then she talks. She'd tell me who she went to coffee with that morning or how her flowers are doing. And when she finished and hit send, that would actually send a audio file that would be sent to my Gmail account, so I could hear my mom's voice, and immediately I could tell whether she's having a good day or a bad day. Photos is the single biggest used application. So no matter whether you send the photo from your phone, whether you have your Facebook account linked, or whether you upload it from our website, they all show up in the photo library. That was another challenging thing for my mom. If I sent her an email with an attached picture, she could never figure out how to download it. And once she downloaded, she couldn't figure out how to view. So when we were developing GrandPad, there were a number of, we called them points of frustration. Simple things like charging. You know, charging any tablet device requires you to plug in a micro USB. And so we ship each GrandPad with a charging station, so they don't need to do that. The other one is volume. So trying to determine which button you press to turn the volume up and down, especially when they're not labeled, can be very challenging for seniors. So no matter whether you're watching a video from your family, you're listening to music, or if you're in a video call with somebody in an organization that's caring for you, we put the audio controls right on the screen in order to turn the volume up or down. We do have a camera, both a photo and video camera. It has both a front and rear facing camera. My mom sent her first selfie at the age of 78. So she thought she was pretty cool at that point. We have a whole series of articles that we curate from the internet. Various things like antiques, cat of the day, dog of the day, current events. We also have, so this is one that I always like to show. This is actually in Portuguese. We have a business partner in Portugal that's using GrandPad incorporated into their process that they have with the patients they care for. And so GrandPad is translated today in Spanish, Portuguese, simplified Chinese, French, German, and with our PACE customers, we're now working on Vietnamese, Khmer, Haitian Creole, and I think there's 4 or 5 other ones. But it's very easy for us to translate. You'll notice there isn't a lot of text on the screen. So in order to translate the GrandPad into various different languages is pretty straightforward. Weather is a surprisingly highly used application. So it includes the weather for all of the companions. So this is my sister who lives in the town that I grew up in. And then you also have the 5-day weather forecast for the each of the companions. We have an AM/FM radio app that radio app can be configured by end user. And as long as the radio station is on the internet, we can load that onto the GrandPad. And I just saw a note come up. Simplified Chinese there's a shortcut way that the Chinese language is displayed. So instead of the longer version, we use simplified Chinese. Most of the Chinese related languages can read simplified Chinese, from my understanding. We also have a music library. So think of Spotify or Apple Music. We have over 30 million titles. We curate them into various different genres, and many of our customers, they will put on the music in the background. So you'll notice that it gets exceedingly loud. So one of the other points of frustration, most tablets have the speaker on the side, and we engineered GrandPad with 2 front-facing speakers that will project the sound directly out to the senior. So even if they're hard of hearing, we find that GrandPad, the way that we produce that sound, they can handle very easily. Games, I showed you the solitaire game, which was my mom's favorite. We also have blackjack, free cell. Bingo is an exceptionally popular game. We have more sophisticated games like bridge and hearts. We also have Sudoku, which is exceedingly challenging. And my favorite game is the memory game. Remember, where you would turn the cards over and need to make matches. We use the profile pictures of all of the companions that are there. And I can even make a match, I think. And so we track every click and every interaction on the device. So we know how many games of solitaire they played. We know if they are continually make a wrong move, and especially in this particular game, if they continue to, select the same ones over and over again. Those are the types of things we can track and report on. We do have connected devices today, and this is actually a big focus area for us in 2021. Many of our healthcare organizations want additional connected devices. Today we have a wearable, excuse me, that tracks sleep and steps, and then we have a scale that tracks weight. This is the interface that's presented to the end user. And all of that data is then captured and available through our portal environment that many of our healthcare customers get access to. We have deep integration with Zoom, and I can show you how easy it is to join a Zoom call. And the big red help button. So every GrandPad that goes out the door is assigned a customer care person. So that person proactively reaches out to the senior to ensure that they're comfortable with the technology. And we have a onboarding process that, we need to ensure that they're completely comfortable with it. Once they're comfortable with it, then we periodically will reach out to them, once a quarter to check in with what's going on. But that help button is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So I'm going to forward, I think I can forward the this email to myself. And so give me 1 second and I'll show you how easy it is for our seniors to join a Zoom call. Yep, it came through. So what we have a deep integration with Zoom, and so there it popped up. You can hear the GrandPad ding, since I sent this calendar invite to me and the meeting's already started, I would get a pop-up notification that I have a Zoom call at this particular time. And by a deep integration, we not only put the Zoom calendar in, or the Zoom event on their calendar, but we also provide an easy one-touch way for the senior to join the Zoom call. That's what we mean by a deep integration. So Andrew, what was your question? What is the process for connecting external devices? So
Yeah.
we curate each of these devices. So the scale that we have is fully integrated into GrandPad, and it also is pre-set up for the end user, as is the wearable. So they don't need to do any pairing. Pairing of devices can be very challenging for seniors, and so everything comes pre-paired. Um, we're working on another device. And I'm not sure if we're actually going to select this device because we actually found one that's better. But this is it merely slip their finger in. It takes blood pressure, takes pulse, takes your oxygen level, and if they hold it up to their forehead, it'll take the temperature. We found another device that's even simpler than this. And so what we do is we deeply integrate with each of those connected devices so that they're easy for the senior to use. So that's a basic overview of GrandPad and how they can communicate with family and friends. So one of the things that we uncovered with working with the PACE organizations is they need an easy way for the senior to be able to reach back to the PACE. So we create each of our business partners that deploy GrandPads have, we call it the PACE button, but essentially it's a button that would have your logo on the screen. You can have some text associated with it, and then the big green call button is configured to call back to a central number. We're extending that, and this is still a work in process, but many of the organizations have different lines or different areas that they need to communicate with. So in this case, this is my demo. This is the Orange County Ophthalmology Group, but it has the same function. So it has a brief description, and then that call button is configured to take the senior directly to that particular group. The way the PACE organizations are going to use this, they have transportation department, they have a nurse line, they have a pharmacist line. So all of those areas would be configured for the senior, and gives them easy one-touch access to be able to communicate with the various groups. The calendar, and again, this was a innovation that we started working on after we started working with our first PACE customers. So the calendar event is under the control of the organization. They can put calendar events on directly from our portal environment, or in the case that I just showed you was the Zoom call. So many of the PACE organizations will organize group Zoom events. They put those on their calendar. They get a pop-up notification when it's time to join the Zoom call, and I showed you how all that worked. And so it's the way that they can manage the various different activities that they have with the individual participant. We do have an internet browser. The internet browser has really two levels to it. You can lock it down so that they can only gain access to the websites that you authorize, or you can open it up and they get a general Google search. So this is that primary care organization out of Texas that I mentioned. They are building a informational website that they're going to deliver to the senior. And you'll notice that there's the controls on the screen make it very easy for the senior to understand what they need to do. And one of the other things that we lock down is we don't allow them to link from a particular website to another website. It's a way that we can keep them safe and secure. Another area that we're working on is a customizable set of questions, or customizable questionnaire. This is an example of a solution we call Daily Connect, and it asks 3 questions. Do you believe that you drink enough water each day? Yes, I think I'm pretty good on that. Next one, during the past 4 weeks, has your emotional health interfered with your social activities? Nope, not at all. And then the last one is a audio response question. Have you seen any national parks? And then it uses that same process for email, and the senior can then merely talk. When they're finished, they submit that response, and it goes back to the daily questions. So we're taking that same capability and we're allowing the PACE organizations or the healthcare organizations to create their own, and then group them by could be condition. All the people with congestive heart failure, they can put together a set of questions for that, or people with COPD, for example. So we're building that capability now. Should be out sometime this summer. The last thing that I want to show you is this is what we call a GrandPad experience app. So many of you, I'm sure, have used Lyft or Uber or one of those ride apps that are there. We actually simplified the user interface. So if you've ever used Lyft or Uber, the main screen, you just see these little cars whirling around. You have no clue as to what you need to do. So we actually put in the home address of the senior, and then the family can lock down the addresses that they can go to. So my mother-in-law used this all the time. In her case, I had the casino also listed there because you like to go play blackjack. But if you're going to the doctor's office, you say yes, it displays the information. And so what's happening in the background is that the GrandPad Experience app is actually interfacing with the Lyft app through a set of APIs. When they find the driver, they display all the information that you see through the app. We just do it in a simplified manner. And when they're done, it's a demo, so I'm not going to actually request a ride. So that's the overview of GrandPad and the various features and functions. What questions can I?
With the email functionality, is an email auto-generated for the consumer receiving a device? How's that all kind of work?
Yeah, every GrandPad is assigned an email address.
Okay.
It's a grandpad.me email address. So if your organization would be using GrandPad, the people that would be interacting with the seniors actually get a login to our portal. That includes you in that circle of trust and allows you to then email them. So you can email them from your Gmail account or your Outlook, whatever it is that you use, and you can email directly to the senior. Their reply comes then back to your email.
And then with the Zoom application, for example, you sent an email about a Zoom meeting. Was that a forward from your Gmail account to?
Yeah.
Oh,
yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So essentially what I did is, let me get back to that. So I just went into the calendar event. We use Gmail. I went into Gmail and I just added my Gmail or my GrandPad email address to the invite list. Since it was coming from my email address, it was part of that trusted circle. It accepted it. Our system interpreted the email. So you'll notice on that email itself, if I read that email, we interpret the details of that email. we know that it's a Zoom account, so you can actually join that Zoom call directly from the email, but we also put it on the calendar as well. So we integrate it with our calendar, and then you can see that same Zoom invite on the calendar.
And quick question, for the Zoom calls, the senior does not need to enter in a meeting ID. They just simply click join Zoom call. Is that correct?
Exactly. Yep.
Got it.
Exactly right. Now, we do give them that option, but because we have the actual Zoom client, and I'm going to dismiss that one. So they can enter in the number, but quite frankly, that's pretty challenging for many seniors to figure out what the actual Zoom number is and then enter it in.
And then making calls. For example, a family member wants to call their family member who owns a GrandPad. They have to interface through an app that they download, or, well, not the call, the video calling, I guess.
Video calling is through our companion app. But however, every it operates like a cell phone, because you can, dial any number out, but we restrict the people that can dial into the GrandPad. So you can dial out with any number. I can call my GrandPad phone number. They get a assigned phone number as well. So I could call that from my cell phone because it's included in the Circle of Trust.
Jay, can you talk a little bit about the consumer versus enterprise?
Sure. The consumer version is really designed for, to interact with their family. The enterprise version includes the calendar app. It includes our paste button, or the button for you all, for them to interact back. It also includes access to our portal environment, so you can manage the fleet of GrandPad. So we have two different versions of our portal environment. We have an administrative version that we have an administrative version of the portal that allows you to wipe and reassign devices, that allows you to include family members into the Circle of Trust from the portal environment. You get access to a wide variety of reports. But then we also have the provider console, which is a simplified version of this. So if I wanted to make a call to my GrandPad, I would merely look up mine. So this is mine right here. And I can send an email. I can manage their calendar events. I can check the data reports. But for me to make a video call, so I'll do it quick. I'm not going to answer because I know it'll feed back. But if you can watch both, then so then it's the same. I don't have a profile picture. If I had a profile picture updated, and it's the same interface as when I called to my mom from the family. Then they can leave a quick little note if they were busy. And then you can also leave a message. Please call about the appointment. And so then that message actually is sent back to the GrandPad. So that portal environment is part of the enterprise solution, both the administrative portal as well as the simplified version of that. What we found is that the administrative portal just had too many functions. And if I'm a part of the care team, I just want to be able to video call or send an email and do it very, very quickly. We developed we call it the provider console, but it's that simplified. Every GrandPad user, as I mentioned, is assigned a customer care person that'll reach out to them. But we also have within the help side of it, we have a whole series of training videos as well that they can view. Provides them an overview.
We'll walk you through some of the features so you can get the
So there's the GrandPad on the charging stand. I didn't show it to you initially. Yep. So, and then you'll notice the all of the controls for the sound are on the screen. Any other questions?
Yeah, related to that customer support, we have a lot of diversity in our communities. Would each participant be able to receive a customer care person who speaks their own language?
So our customer care team is, or our customer care is delivered out of their stay-at-home moms and dads in southern Minnesota and northern Iowa. We just expanded to, it's one of the Carolinas. I think it's South Carolina, but I'm not certain on that. And we also have a customer care team in Gorey, Ireland. So we provide follow the sun 24/7. They traditionally are English speaking. We have some that are fluent in Spanish, but we also have access to a language line. So every GrandPad that goes out, we identify the native language of that particular user so that when they call in, the customer support person can get the language person on the line, and it becomes a conference call per se. And I think we support, I think it's 60 some odd languages through that language line. Mm-hmm.
This looks like a fantastic solution. I see myself needing some, in my future. But I want to make sure that I get this straight. So I understand the deployment from the personal side of it, but in a situation that's more enterprise, there's going to be an admin person who's on the enterprise side or a team of enterprise folks. And it's up to those folks to create that circle of trust. So no. Okay. So how does that work?
So every one of our business customers, there's an implementation and setup activity that goes on. We need to establish the portal. We need to understand who from your organization needs access to it. We need to go through the training side of it, et cetera. And then once that is done and we're ready to deploy the GrandPads, once the GrandPad goes out, if you know their family members before they're shipped out, we can actually include that within our fulfillment process. And then it acts like the consumer side. So they get a welcome email, they get links to download the app, et cetera. And really, we use a crowdsourcing approach for the family. So we have this concept of a family admin. So I was the family admin for my mom. My wife was actually the family admin for my mother-in-law. But it's that person's responsibility to invite the rest of the family and friends into it. If the GrandPad user would contact our customer care team and they have the email address of somebody they would like to add, then our customer care team can do that as well. But it really doesn't fall onto your responsibility to create that. It's really a crowdsourced type of scenario. If you know the family admin, you can add that from the portal environment, but you don't need to be adding all of those.
Got it. So if the enterprise, basically as part of the setup, the enterprise admin would provide the contact information for each user's family admin to GrandPad, and then GrandPad would create that circle from whatever information that supposed family admin provided.
Correct.
Got it.
And then if they didn't have any when we initially shipped the device out, but later they said, yes, I'd like to have somebody be the family admin, then you can do that from the portal environment, or they can call our customer care team who will set up that family. Essentially, GrandPad's responsible for the support of the end user in using the technology. We're also responsible for the hardware. We keep it up to date. If there are issues that arise, we can fix them remotely. And so it's the IT burden on our business partners is very, very low because we take care of all of that. We built, for the techies in the room, we built our own mobile device management layer So we have complete control and access to each of the devices that go on.
I have a kind of a tricky question that's related to that. So I know that GrandPad comes with its own 4G connection. There are parts of San Francisco that don't receive 4G transmissions from all carriers. Let's say, for example, we get a GrandPad out to a user and they're not able to get good reception in their home. Who's responsible for going in and making sure that it's connected to Wi-Fi?
Actually, we have relationships with the big three carriers: Verizon, T-Mobile, AT&T.
I have a question. I want to bring it back to the language capacity of the devices. So in terms of support, that's great. GrandPad utilizes the language line, but on the device itself, especially those navigation buttons, for example, quieter and louder. You've mentioned English, well, not English, Spanish, Chinese, possibly Vietnamese. Are those navigation buttons also translated? Okay,
they're all translated.
Great.
So there just aren't that many of them, right? So it's pretty easy for us to translate the device. And so we have one PACE organization in Boston. They serve about 1,000 participants, but they serve 16 different languages. So we're in the process of, translating GrandPad into all 16 of those. That's where we got the Haitian Creole, and Khmer is another one, and Vietnamese. So there's, it's pretty easy. It takes a couple weeks, and surprisingly, we use Google Translate to get the base words that need to be there. And then we have a native speaking person, curate it, because, oftentimes Google Translate has there may be some meaning that you don't necessarily want to have for that particular word. So we go through and fine tune it. It's about a 2-week start to finish effort. So it's very, very easy.
And then you mentioned the PACE button, and then there could be a telemedicine button. How are those kind of created? How are those portals conceptualized, added to GrandPad?
Yeah, so the PACE button is done during the initial setup with each of our business partners, and it's pushed out based on the individual. So I'll give you the example with PACE. So this organization in Boston, they have 6 different centers. Each individual is assigned to a particular center. So depending on who the individual is, they will get that number to call their particular.
And then in terms of telemedicine, telehealth, connecting with doctors, I'm assuming that has to be pre-identified and pre-configured. Depending on
that's the first step.
Yeah.
The second step really boils down to the doctor's capability, and what solution they're using. What we found is that for an 80-year-old to do a user ID password or enter their patient number and get access to it, some of them can do it, some of them can't, but most of those applications are exceedingly difficult to navigate. I'll give you an example. We're working with Kaiser in the Central Valley region, and they wanted us to put their MyChart, which is an Epic app. It's an Android app, fine, it can run just fine, but we set the GrandPad down in front of a senior with the MyChart app. And like the calendar icon is this little icon. It doesn't even tell you what it is, and so they were inherently confused. That's why, like our GrandPad Experience app, like what we've done with Lyft, we believe is a much better way to build that environment for the senior. It requires us to have access into a set of APIs in order to do that. We did it with Zoom. We did it with Lyft. We're working with an organization that delivers an Epic-like system for PACE organizations. So we're creating that easy-to-use interface. So it can be done to do telehealth broadly, but it really depends both on the provider's capabilities, and then that whatever capability they have is easy enough for the senior to be able to have.
And then it's kind of tied to the Lyft, Uber transportation button. I'm also curious how that is configured, because there's payment attached to that. So, you know, if we're looking at an enterprise model, well, you just go ahead and explain how that's all figured out and configured.
The way Lyft works is like any other Lyft app. GrandPad is merely a client on that. So there needs to be a credit card that's associated with the account in order to charge the rides to. My mother-in-law, for example, I started with my credit card and she's continued to use it. But I'd much rather have her use Lyft than to drive on her own. But there is a credit card that's attached to every account that's there. And it's really we don't have any business partners, business customers utilizing the Lyft app today. It's predominantly consumer.
When you're doing the initial setup for enterprise, like what does the ideal team look like when you have an enterprise build? Who's rolling that out? How much time does it take?
Yeah, so the best practices we have, there needs to be a program lead. That program lead is responsible to manage the cultural change within the organization, because it is different, right? You're inserting a set of technology that everybody then needs to take advantage of in order to receive the value from it. So there needs to be a program manager. That program manager then has typically some sort of admin role that is responsible to manage the fleet of devices. The rest of the people are really users, and that's where we provide the training on how things work dependent on your specific use case. Length of time, the environment can be set up within a couple of weeks. That's pretty easy, pretty straightforward. Training then is dependent on schedules. We oftentimes will have repeat training. We also, right after the first of the year, we developed it's a program website. So every one of our business customers has their own view into that. They have their access to all of our user guides, training materials. When we record training for each specific business customer, those links are available on there. So it's we try to make it as self-help as possible, but every business partner has a team assigned to them. There's a peer to the program manager that we have. And then from a user perspective, we have the day-to-day people. So, there's an issue, can't figure something out, then there's a direct contact into our support organization.
For the time being, yes. That training materials and the best practices that you mentioned, I mean, is that a physical document? Would we have access to that?
They're all electronic. Yeah, PDF based. It's the general user's guide is about 100 pages long, but it's an indexed PDF, so you can jump to specific topics. That's available through that program website, and it's specific to each of our business customers. So if they have a unique use case, or if there are unique things that they will be utilizing GrandPad for, then that's all described. The user guide is pretty generic, and if there is something unique, like a unique app or something else, then we just append it to that for that particular situation.
Thank you.